Join us as we track the development of children from birth to the school gate. The journey from Nought to 5. Be prepared for a roller coaster ride as easygoing and laid-back toddlers start to test the limits. This is the stage of growing independence and what you can expect from 1 to 2-year-olds. Identical twins Samantha and Lucy are 18 months. Louis is 20 months. All three are growing in independence. Kerry is about to spend some time with their families to discuss the challenges of this age and stage. Having mastered walking, children at this stage are starting to run and climb and are becoming more interested in others. They often like helping with real jobs and can follow simple instructions. Language is developing rapidly as they experiment with more and more words. And they want everything here and now. Bring on the tantrums. First up are parents Carla, part-time theatrical director and choreographer, and Gary, who's a social worker studying for his masters. Both are noticing big changes in 20-month-old Louis' behaviour.
People would come around and say, what a angelic, mellow, laid-back baby, and he was like that for ages, and even when he ate, he would always eat things like spinach and broccoli, and people were very envious about that kind of thing, and he just very incredibly kind of compliant and quiet, and then as soon as he started to be able to move around a bit and talk, it all completely changed, and he would just be off and crawling and bashing into walls and saying no and climbing on stuff, and always like, what's happened? He's, you know, it's like a different personality. He's completely replaced himself. He's just some other child.
Those things that you've just described are exactly developmentally on target for a wee guy who's 20 months old. Previously, his developmental challenge was about trust, about trusting his parents to keep him safe and loved. He's achieved that. You guys have done that perfectly. So now his developmental task is about asserting himself. So that's what he's up to, asserting himself the whole time.
Yeah. Ready, 1, 2, 3, put your arms up. Yay.
And of course that's quite tricky for parents because they've moved from having this kind of easy child who just soaked in all that love to develop all their safety and sense of security to a child who wants to tell you what's what and have life.
And knows what's what too.
Yeah. And so sometimes he's going to respond really well, he's going to listen and take it in and agree, and other times he's not going to agree.
Yes.
And you guys are going to have a wee struggle on your hands about how to help him comply.
The key thing to work out is what matters and what doesn't. One bad habit that Louis got into is pulling hair.
Not pulling mummy's hair.
Poor mummy. You have to decide, no, we don't do hair pulling. That's just one thing we don't do in our family. No hair pulling, not in our family. And just say that a lot. So every time he comes near a head, you say, no, not hair pulling. We don't do hair pulling. Come back and I will tickle your back, though.
So introduce an alternative.
Introduce the alternative that's fun and nice.
Another area of concern for Carla is Louis' eating habits. 6 months ago, he'd eat everything. Now he's getting picky.
But I'm just trying to not get too involved in it because it can be quite upsetting when you've spent all this time creating this lovely little home-cooked thing and he decides that he's just going to chuck it out, you know, just like that. And so I'm just going to calm down and not get too sort of emotional about the whole thing.
And to not be emotional about it is fantastic. To separate emotion from food is always a very good idea. You want to be calm around food. That's the most important thing.
Bye-bye.
Food that's creatively presented is more appealing. Another tactic is to give lots of praise for the food that's been eaten and ignore what hasn't. Children will typically go through phases of eating exactly the same food every day and then one day not liking it at all. Making a child eat something they don't want to is courting disaster.
But what we did yesterday when he wasn't eating is, and you did get emotional about food, in fact you broke down and cried, and because he wasn't eating his dinner, is I took him outside and sat him on the front step of the house and we ate his dinner out there, and changing the environment seemed to work for him. He actually loves being outside. Honey, it is.
And that's fantastic. I think, you know, when you're lucky enough to be part of a couple, when you can look out for what's stressful for each other and step in, that's great. Well done.
Another thing is his shoe obsession. Sometimes he wants to wear his shoes at inappropriate times, like when he's off to bed. Most of the time we don't give in to him, but sometimes if he hasn't got his shoes on in bed, then, you know, it's devastating.
I guess the learning point in there is that partial reinforcement or intermittent reinforcement is the strongest way of making a behaviour continue. So it means if you say no, 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 yes, no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no, the yes is the bit that really works. A child knows that if they persevere and persevere and persevere and persevere and persevere, occasionally they'll get the permission. Any other concerns?
The tantrum thing, well, it's actually not a tantrum. It's like sometimes he wakes up and he isn't feeling great or he hasn't enough sleep or something, and he'll wake up crying and won't stop. And then it will just escalate into this full-blown kind of huge, what seems like a tantrum. It's distressing because you don't know why he's upset. I feel quite sort of helpless.
My hunch is that he's probably had a bad dream. When you look at our dream state as the rapid eye movement state, and children this age spend about half of their sleeping time in rapid eye movement sleep. So he's having a really intense time.
Louis can sleep up to 3 hours during the day, and we thought that a lot of that might be in the light sleep phase when he's prone to dreaming.
What is that? Yeah, even gentle.
We suggested he be woken after 2 hours when he's probably in a deeper sleep. Another phase that Louis is presently going through is favouring mum over dad, to the extent dad hardly gets a look in.
And that's a bottle.
The main thing that's causing that to happen, the very main thing, is again just this asserting of independence, that it's some area of Louis' life that he can be very powerful. He can choose you and not you, or vice versa, and that makes him very, very powerful. So the important things to keep in mind is that this will change and he will reject you next time and choose you, so not to get hung up on being chosen or rejected. So when he's saying, no, no, mummy, if you just go with that quite quickly, it'll blow over much faster than if you try and make a fuss about it. The other thing that will help is if you can make a fuss of Gary. So before Gary gets home, you start saying, oh, neat, Dad's coming home, I can't wait to see him. So that Gary becomes an aspirational person in this family again.
Daddy, a kiss? Yeah. Big kiss for Daddy. Oh, he's very mwah. Ooh, yay!
Gary and Carla embrace parenting and all the pleasures it brings. Investing their time and energy now will give Louis a strong foundation for life.
How are you guys today? Good. Good. Gonna have it done?
This is Louise, who's studying copy editing part-time and has been raising her 4 children on her own for 18 months. John, her eldest son, is 7. Robin is almost 6. But our focus is on 18-month-old Lucy and Samantha.
What's their behaviour like these days?
As far as behaviour goes, I've noticed there's a lot more. They're getting possessive about things, not that they have their own things. So we're coming into that age of learning to share, which is very difficult, and having the odd tantrum, especially when they're tired.
What you want to do is come close to the children, get down to their level and describe exactly what you've seen. As soon as you've described it clearly, children's emotions go down quite a few levels. And then you can say, this doesn't seem very fair, does it? But I think that you girls are so clever and so kind to each other.
With this positive attitude, invite the children to sort out their problem themselves.
And in a very confident voice, say to the kids, I trust you to be able to do it. And then step back and see what happens. And so whenever it works, you go, I knew you could do it. You kids are so great at solving your fighting.
Okay, there you go. Samantha has actually just started smacking me as well. What I tried the other day was I picked her up and took her out of the kitchen and put her in the lounge and walked away. And she got really upset. She knew that what she had done was wrong and that I was upset with her, and she came back and then we had a cuddle and it was okay.
Time away from mum is an effective way of showing your child their behaviour was not appropriate. Part of the reason children behave inappropriately is because they don't have the language skills to express their feelings. One way round this is to talk to your children, explain what has happened and put their feelings into words for them.
You put out a whole lot of words, the kids are understanding you,
Yeah.
they can't say all those words, so you're doing it for them.
Right. Did Samantha take your crackers? Are you sad? Shall we share some? Shall we share some with Lucy?
Frustration at not being able to express yourself can lead to tantrums.
Tantrums aren't about naughty children or bad parents. They're absolutely the developmental way of gaining autonomy, proving your independence, knowing that you can do things.
Yes. And some for Lucy.
You can start using the anger rules. Have you heard of them?
No.
So they'll be really good for your whole family. The 3 anger rules are: don't hurt yourself, don't hurt others, don't hurt property, do talk about it.
Don't hurt property. Property.
Yeah. And that means when you get angry, that you don't break your toys and you don't throw things when you're angry.
Yeah.
6 months ago, the children's father decided to cease contact with them altogether. This is not unusual. Of the 10,000 separations that happen each year in New Zealand, a third of fathers have nothing to do with their families. While the older boys can remember their father, 18-month-old Lucy and Samantha have no recollection.
He wants to gain weight, a megaton.
What's quite good to do with wee children, like your wee girls, is to keep Dad alive for
Right.
them. So even if they're not seeing him right now, to show photos of Dad and talk
Right.
about Dad. And
You've got a dad, haven't you, Robin?
Mm-hmm.
What's your dad's name?
John.
Yes, that's right.
talk about how he used to love doing certain things with them when they were
Right.
babies, and
Yeah.
so that they build up a notion of Dad and a picture of Dad that they can keep with them,
Right.
so that when they're facing later stages, they can reference it to Dad.
Right,
They know
okay.
about their dad. They've got one. They know some
Right.
stuff about him.
Yeah.
Make him a bit more visible.
And do you know what colour his eyes are? What colour are his eyes?
Brown.
Yes.
For mums on their own, it's important to make time to play physically with your children.
The boys want to wrestle and, they want to do all the physical aggressive type play, which I really don't want to do at all. And I do think about that with the girls as well. They're getting really heavy now and it's hard for me to sort of throw them around, and it's hard enough picking them up all the time.
And one of the things that kids say they really miss about dads, and when they come back to mum's house after seeing Dad, they miss the fact that Dad will play with them and mum's always doing housework. They hate that. So as a solo mum, you kind of have to play more, don't
Yeah,
you? So
yeah.
I'm thinking of things that don't involve up would be
Right.
really good, like creep up. That's a good game.
No, you moved. You have to go back to the start. No, Robin, you're moving. You have to go back to the start. You go back with Jonathan.
The most protective thing for children for their whole lives is a very good relationship with at least one parent, at least one.
Yeah.
So play is the best way to strengthen that.
Right.
Yahooing, and it brings all the stress level down in the
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, it does. Yogurt.
Although Louise gets help with the children from her family, she gets little time for herself.
Having 4 kids, it's very hard to find people who want to look after 4 children in one go. So every now and then I try to sort of spread them around my family to have a bit of a break.
Another idea is to pair each child off with someone you trust, who could be responsible for them for an agreed period of time. It's good to be specific about what you require.
Choose somebody that you know would connect really well with that child. And it's a real honour and a privilege for that person.
Yeah.
And there are people who aren't as burdened by commitment.
Yeah, I know a few people like that.
Well, that would be wonderful. That would be a lovely thing to do for both parties.
Lucy and Samantha are thriving and enjoying the new challenges at this stage of their development. Although it can be a testing time for parents, it's hugely rewarding watching them grow in their independence. A fun thing to make for children of this age is a bee finger puppet. You'll need a strip of elastic about 6 centimetres long, then cut a piece of fabric for the bee's wings and sew along the edge of the wing to attach it to the elastic. Sew the ends of the elastic together to create a ring you can put on your finger. We decorated the wings and drew a face of a bee on our mum's fingernail.
A bee flew by as busy as can be.
The bee song teaches your child's eyes to track. Having eye fitness means when Chloe's ready for school, her eyes will be able to track from one side of the page to the other, enabling her to read with ease.
I'm just learning there are rules in the world. If you keep them simple and consistent, you make it much easier for me to figure out what they are.
Active movement, making the connection between movement and learning to develop the whole child.
There's a whole series of physical milestones that we see children going through, and the milestones are developmental indicators, if you like, of where the child developmentally is at. So the girls will have been rolling when they were little, then started to crawl, then they walk, and after walking comes jumping. And the beginnings of jumping actually happen really, really early on. So you start seeing little people, even when they're not walking, they'll sit on balloons or on your knee even and bounce up and down. Any time from 18 months is when we usually find children starting to 2-foot jump. That means they lift both feet off the ground, which is actually really early.
Ready? Jump! Good girl. Good girl.
There's a significant stage. It's a stage that the children are still functioning in what we call the bilateral state of development.
Good girl.
Which means neither side of my body is dominant.
Jump!
The girls have got an imaginary line down their bodies, called the midline, and that separates their left side from their right side. At this age, their bodies are functioning as a whole. One side of the body mirrors what the other side is doing.
It's not till I've jumped and I learn to jump and I bounce up and down that I start to cross my midline, okay? That then means I can then start to do these kinds of things and these kinds of things where, you know, one side of my body is doing something different from the other.
Right.
Okay? And it's very significant when I go to school because I need to hold this side still while this side moves, you know, so I have to have lots of practice at doing those kinds of things. The best thing to do to encourage midline is to do crawling activities. So playing games where you're chasing the child around the house, put all your chairs together and put the blankets over the top and do crawling activities, all that kind of thing is going to help with this midline thing.
And don't think once your child's jumping that the midline's been conquered.
Later on in development, you might notice with your boys in the swimming pool, they're swimming nicely with the kickboard and they're kicking away. And so you say, oh, we're going to bring in the arms. So you take away the kickboard and they start using their arms, and what happens to the feet?
They stop.
They stop. And you say, hang on a second, you've forgotten your feet. So they start with their feet again and the hands stop. Okay? That's because I still haven't sussed out completely the midline thing, because the midline thing allows me to do something different with one side of my body than it does with the other. So as much practice of doing things with both sides of the body at this stage, not trying to make them become right-handed or left-handed, because there is no advantage in doing that. Just allowing them to have free rein of using both sides of their body. That means in the high chair, when they start using the spoon, where are you going to put the spoon on the high chair?
I don't know.
In the middle. So that they choose. Now this leads me on to talking about body image and understanding my body. We do a lot of baby massage with little people so that they learn that their body starts up here and finishes down here. Now, it's at 18 months and a little beyond that, it's still important to do that. You might notice that they're particularly clumsy at this age. They trip over things and bang into things. Because they're growing so jolly fast, they have to adjust. They're a different size, so they're having to have experiences all the time to learn about their different body shape, body size. But learning about their body image also requires us touching those areas and touching, you know, this as you massage, this is your elbow.
Where's your ears, Samantha? Where's your ears?
This develops language.
That's your ears.
So name all the parts of the body.
Where's Mummy's ears? There they are, good girl. Do you want to clean her?
Dolls are great to do this with.
What's that? Toes, that's right.
Children know the main parts of their body. I get kids at school age just to walk heel to toe across the beam or across a plank or something. A lot of them don't know where their heels are. And I'm wondering why they can't walk heel to toe, you know?
Really?
Oh, bingo, I know. It's because they don't know where their heel is.
Yeah. Where you go, Lucy? You go and get it.
At this age, it's also a good time to start strengthening the upper body, which ultimately will give them the capability to master writing with a pencil.
Good girl. There we go.
Fine motor doesn't happen until we've got our gross motor skills sorted out. So those are our large body muscle activities. Doing row your boat with them.
Your boat gently down the stream.
Pulling them up from a lying down position, hanging them up by their hands. Do you do that kind of thing?
Yeah, I love that.
And if they start to pull their head back like that, that's a sign to you to stop doing that, because what we want for them to do is to actually what we call co-contract their muscles, and that means they lock their elbows and take their own weight. If they drop their head back like that, it usually means that I'm not using my own muscle tone to pull myself up or to hang myself, and that can be dangerous. You don't want to pull the arms out of the sockets.
Okay.
But doing those kinds of things is really significant. Are there things that I've talked about today that you didn't know before about children's development?
Yes, there were a lot of things actually that I hadn't heard before, so it was really good to see some of the things that the girls were doing that I can understand now, the reason behind the play. So yeah, it was good.
Get them jumping. That's really where they're at. This is the age of jumping, exploration, finding out about their world.